November 15th, 2023, we finally got the episode 10 of Goosebumps. And I'm here to talk about the whole series as a whole, from what I think, and probably you could say the future predictions for season two. So I'm not really going to do a review, so to speak, in some of these episodes. I'm just giving you my take and where I think the future of this series is going to go. Like many of you guys, I grew up watching the Goosebumps animated series on Fox Kids back in the day. I also got a chance to read some, not all, but some of the books. I was more so, like many others, fascinated by the front covers more than I would want to read it. Sometimes, usually, the front cover, as a kid, gave me the imagination of what could this book contain and what could be going on. And then the back of the synopsis really sometimes wouldn't match what I was seeing with the book. So I usually passed those and just waited for them to be adapted into the series, more so than reading some of them. But I grew up nonetheless with Goosebumps, and seeing this whole remake, man, just to kind of get into it and talk about it. Those who don't know, this is your boy Clash Masters, giving you my offshoot on definitely the Goosebumps series. If you like what I'm doing, please hit the subscribe, hit the bell for notifications for when I go up. Please leave a like button. Your way in. Okay, so we get to, I would probably say in episode 1, the kind of like the introduction of some of the book titles, because each episode is labeled one of the book titles, and we get to that with the Say Cheese and Die being the first episode. And seeing a lot of reference from there with the whole camera, and it could kind of pretty much do the whole, I think it was Final Destination 3, kind of tell, feature your fate of what could happen if you get your picture taken, so to speak. And, I thought it was a cool idea. I thought it was a pretty cool premise to kind of bring back some of those, you could say, haunted elements or enchanted artifacts, and putting it in modern time a little bit more realistic compared to the Goosebumps series, which looked a little bit more funny, the camera. But I will say, to kind of keep it more self-centered, real life teen horror drama, so to speak, it's good to have a camera that kind of fits in the modern time, especially since you're doing it from a 1990, I think it was 3's perspective, to have that kind of camera. So I thought that was cool. The rules still applied, but even though we didn't get as much time with the camera was executed nicely. It was there. Seeing some of the kids' kind of, you could say, collection. We got the haunted mask. There was something that looked like monster blood. There was the worm. So you had a lot of Goosebumps Easter eggs. And then when you jump into kind of the episode and you kind of move forward, so to speak, a little bit, you get the haunted camera. You get the haunted mask. And I'm gonna say, the haunted mask artifact really wasn't like the strongest. I love the haunted mask, and I thought that mask really did it justice. So I was hoping maybe that was like, because Goosebumps has another mask type, feeling like Phantom of the Opera. I thought that was going to be that mask more than I thought haunted mask. But once we got into the next episode called the haunted mask, it was kind of more so. I was on edge just to see if they would kind of maybe bring back the OG mask and kind of revamp it, or kind of mask would it be. Seeing the mask that we got, the whole mask just didn't really suit it, didn't really fit it. But seeing how he could talk and they could kind of do certain things and take facial expressions, I thought that was kind of creepy. I thought that was kind of decent. But the mask overall didn't really scream, this is the haunted mask. I feel like they dropped the ball with that particular relic or haunted artifact. So I really wasn't too much keen on it, but it had some pretty interesting abilities that we didn't get to see with the previous haunted mask in the 90s. So I thought, when you look at it from a pros and cons perspective, you do get your like super strength, and then the mask kind of transformed, and it kind of was stuck to her skin at that point when she was consumed by the hate and some of the rage. But then it was only for a brief period of time, and it didn't really bring some of the cast together. And you got to think about it. This is also a condensed episode, so I think it was more so of like an artifact of the day. So we didn't really get a lot of, say, Cheese Camera or a lot of the Haunted Mask. They just kind of had their episode runtime, and then they had to be executed to progress through the overarching story. So that was kind of fine. Then you had the guy who kind of ate the worms and felt indestructible, and then the worms were coming back for him. And that one was pretty unique. I would say that was a pretty interesting take on the worms, on how to get rid of them and what they kind of did and stuff like that. I thought that was pretty interesting. We've never seen them take it around that route before. So I'll say the worms was pretty good. And then you kind of had like I would say like non-linear books, just kind of like self-titled, Viewer Beware and Goosebumps. So it was just one of those things where it's like, okay, it's not based off a book title, so they're kind of doing whatever. But then you get Night of the Living Dummy. I thought Slappy was pretty, executed pretty okay compared to his movie counterpart. I think this Slappy was a little bit more, I would say, chilling. But he wasn't better than the OG Slappy. I think personally, for me, he's definitely top, on the top tier, top bucket list, just because the design they had him for. And then we get this newer Slappy, which is kind of a little bit more better, smoother. The voice wasn't there, but at least I would say like the look of that Slappy looked a little bit more better. So we get that. And then you kind of get like our, I'll say, Goosebumps verse of R.L. Stine, so to speak, because the guy Jason Long played, I think it was Mr. Brad. He was an inspiring writer. He was kind of down on his luck, and there was a lot of things that was going on with him. So, he was definitely an interesting player. You could tell he had fun playing the character. So a lot of the cast the energy was there. They weren't stiff. They weren't dull. A lot of the stuff they had them in, to me, they brought their grade A performance. They had a good supporting cast crew supporting them, as long as the parents. So the chemistry was there. It was good. I enjoyed watching everyone on screen. Acting didn't really feel forced or rushed. I would love to see some of them. Actually, say, interact more with some of the Goosebumps artifacts and stuff like that if we had a little bit more time. Oh, and I forgot to mention, the cuckoo clock was pretty interesting too. It was nice. Different ability, but it was still nice. Still had the time loop, but just a little bit different ability. And like I said, just for the sake of the show, I thought that was a little nice tidbit to add in there. But going back to like the whole cast and their performance, I really enjoyed it a lot. There was nothing. I wasn't skipping an episode. I wasn't fast forwarding any kind of unnecessary dialogue. I was glued, to say the least. So I think they really brought life into the series. So it was good overall. All casts from start to the very end, they definitely brought their own A game, and they really brought a different take on Goosebumps. And as far as now that we ended episode 10 with I think it was like Welcome to Horrorland, and that had no recollection with the actual Horrorland book nor thing. I think they just had that as kind of a placeholder. Hopefully when they do a part 2 of Welcome to Horrorland, they kind of add some of the elements from the previous Goosebumps. That's always interesting. I think whenever you take the title of some of these books, you're able to add some kind of flair to it based off the book to some kind of degree. But if you're just going to have the title be called that and not have it correlate to anything, it's kind of weird. It's kind of wonky, a little bit new, I'll say, for a lot of Goosebumps fans, like myself included. But overall, I think the fate for season 2, I think it's going to be interesting. It's really going to be interesting to see where it goes from there. I would love for it to maybe be a new character that's been there, but we haven't seen. that may have some artifacts, that may have some haunted stuff as well. That kind of ties them into Goosebumps. Maybe I think maybe you could just have like another character. They might have known Biddle, or I think his name was Biddle. They might have known him, and maybe his mother, father, or whoever had an artifact from him that they kept, just like Marriott's mother kind of had photos and stuff like that of him. And seeing one of the other parents talk about they should have ended it years ago. So there's a little bit more stuff that you can kind of play with, kind of say like, you know, they had the opportunity to stop X, Y, and Z, but they never did. So now when we get in season 2, we kind of still get some of that, the sins are on the, you know, the father and stuff like that, and it's passed down to the kids, and they still gotta go up an uphill battle. I'm not gonna really spoil too much entirely, but there are some things that were kind of left for a continuation for season 2. So I would love to kind of see those elements play in season 2, as well as some newer elements that kind of tie everything together for the bigger picture, and who would be kind of the new big baddie, who would be maybe a returning villain or whatever, so to speak. So there's a lot that is definitely to be desired, but I think for the fate of season 2, it'll be cool just for them to go a little bit of a different route. Like I said, a couple new characters, maybe two new characters, 3 new characters, some new I'll say haunted artifacts that hasn't been all the way explored. You know, you have the house, pretty much the dead house is what a few people were calling it. But you have the house that you could really use to your advantage. You have Mr. Brad, who still hasn't showcased or explored through the house. So there could be things like, you know, his great-grandfather was kind of a collector of sorts. So he could have collected maybe some comic books, and that's how we would get like our the Masked Mutant books. He could have been a botanist, and that's how you get to stay out of the basement kind of ordeal. So there could be a little bit more stuff in that house that they haven't shown, that they could show, or they could give that to maybe a new character, one who's into comic books. Mother's like a botanist, not a botanist, but is into like gardening and stuff like that. Now we know actually it was also mentioned, I think in episode 1 or 2 or maybe 3, where one of the counselor's wives is really into gardening, and he was like, I'm taking over gardening. So you could kind of do like a stay out of the basement kind of theme with that. Maybe the guy splits his, you know, blood on a certain plant, and then he kind of starts going through that stay out of the basement transition through the actual whole series, and he could kind of like that mini boss, because no one would really suspect it right off the gate, and then it could lead into something where we get maybe a Night in Terror Tower, Tower of Terror, I don't know, Tower of Terror, Night in Terror Tower, one of those two. We could get maybe an episode of that where kids are maybe stuck in a museum, and someone's, you know, using a spell or a scrapbook or some type of thing, and it just kind of becomes, you know, they're just kind of stuck in the night of the museum, and now they're pretty much trying to figure out how to, you know, undo what's been done, so to speak. So there's a whole lot of, I think, room for what they would want to incorporate, what they could interpret. But needless to say, I think we might have something here. We may have something for season 2. Hopefully we get another 10 episodes for season 2. You know, and this is kind of like me fanboying on this part. It would be interesting if we had maybe, because R.L. Stine, besides Goosebumps, he had, I think, 2 other shows, The Haunting Hour, and he had this other show. I can't remember it off the top of my head right now, but it came out a little bit after Goosebumps and before The Haunting Hour. But it would be cool to have one of those 2 shows kind of be in that same, you could say, Goosebumps universe, but just maybe in a different town or a different city. And we're getting a lot of things that you could cross over with on Goosebumps. It'd be very interesting. Like I think Riverdale, if I'm not mistaken, and Sabrina on Netflix are kind of, I believe, would be in the same universe. So we could get something like that, maybe a haunting hour that's, filmed in the same location, but just it's being portrayed over here. And the haunting hour might have a few Goosebumps elements just to kind of do little tidbits and nudges of maybe a possibility of a crossover, but they'll still have their standalone ancient, not ancient, but haunted relic, so to speak. But that's just my take if they kind of were to do that kind of thing, because I feel with certain things Goosebumps is going to have to introduce, is going to have to be explained, and I don't want it to be too much of a retcon or finding themselves backed up against the wall because they might have left this out, or their sense of direction's a little bit not spot on. So it'll be interesting to see, and maybe have the Haunting Hour show kind of give them another direction or an idea of things that they could incorporate that they might have not have thought of incorporating in the show. But who's to say? Maybe season 2, like I said, it might end with season 2, and then season 3 might be a whole new cast, whole different town. We don't know. This is just me giving speculation of pretty much the fate of what could happen and what I would like to see happen and how it could possibly happen. There's just a whole lot of room for pretty much a lot of ideas. There's a pretty much a lot of different takes that you could do, because what we got for my whole entertainment of the show was just endless possibilities. We're talking about a dude who made a lot of books, and a lot of books didn't come to the series. So you could give some of those books a little bit of some screen time and some shine if you choose to, or maybe you could put those books maybe in season 3 when it's being shot at a different location, or you could put them in maybe one of the many R.L. Stine book that Sony might produce in order to tell a conclusive storyline. Anything can happen. Your universe, so to speak, to get a Goosebumps universe established, which would be pretty interesting. Of R.L. Stine's work, Goosebumps would be the spearhead, and then the rest of them would just kind of come up underneath that. And in time, we'll definitely see what's going to happen, And I think it'll be something great. It'll be more bigger than the movies, the Goosebumps movies, because you're incorporating a little bit more of R.L.'s works from all across the board. That's entertaining, that's been talked about, that's sold, and hasn't gotten the push to the spotlight. So, and anything's possible. Anything is really possible, and I think just giving my whole tidbit on it definitely was something that I wanted to do. I'm definitely going to go a little bit more in depth, for sure, on the Blue Saber podcast. So if you guys really want to think what I think about it a little bit more, definitely check me out on the podcast, where I'm going to be covering the Goosebumps topic, and it's all entirely of the whole season, and what I think a little bit more. But that's definitely going to conclude my Goosebumps discussion of what I thought of the season. Overall, I can't wait to see more of it, and let me know in the comments down below if you guys thought it was fire or if you guys thought it was trash. You guys haven't seen it yet. Until then, I'll see you guys in the next one. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the bell for notifications, so when I'm going up, you guys will be the first ones to know about it, and definitely go and hit the like button. It helps me greatly out with the growing channel. Till then, I'll see you guys later. This is Clashmaster signing out. Take care. Peace.